welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to your world on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe. Big C and them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south, in the land of the free and the home of the brave, on the beautiful August the 21st, 2020. Rondo Deporte. Bonjour, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Parlez-vous français?
It's all good. It's all good in the neighborhood, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Going wonderful. I got my mail-in ballot today for the November 3rd election, so It will be filled out in the morning, pressed back into the mailbox. So whatever Louis DeJour and Donald Trump want to say about mail voting by fraud and all those things, I'm even going to put a picture of my ID in, along with it to verify that I'm a Negro voting Democrat.
If you do that, he might say, throw it out! Throw that down out, Big C. Hopefully they won't. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. And all around the world, just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear, welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic, and he will do his thing from 3,000 miles away. And I really appreciate the way things are done with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Spotify. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, on Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. But you better have a smart TV, or you'll be sitting there looking at a still picture. Man, I love pausing, Big C. Gotta pause a lot because the air is so thick with ash in California, but I'll never pause on our Veterans Crisis Hotline. They really are experienced helping veterans and their loved ones get help, Big C. Why is that so important to you?
Because it seems like it's the only way that veterans are getting help these days in America. Our nation has turned its back on our veterans. We're losing some 22 a day to suicide, Charlton. And as we listen to Donald Trump every day spewing venom towards all of America, he is avoiding dealing with the veterans. He does not address their issues of homelessness, of medication needs, Charlton, of psychological problems, and even the issue of suicide. When he's talking about slowing down the mail, Charlton, many of our veterans get their medications through mail. They get their veterans checked, and yet he is making it even difficult for these people who have served the country. Damn his base as far as what he wants to protect. Think about the veterans who protected his base and his butt from, not having to go to war. But, I want to say one more thing about your president today, Charlton. We give out the National Suicide Hotline number on a regular basis. But he denigrated the People's House today. I understood he lost his brother last week. But he's having personal funerals in the White House, Charlton. That's something the president doesn't do. Donald Trump is so afraid of walking into a church is that he held a funeral for his brother today in the White House. The People's House is for private and personal use, Charlton. Yeah,
I do understand. Big C will always pay homage to our veterans. Just call 800-278-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, simply go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can hopefully get some help for them. Also, very happy to be affiliated with Valley Homes Weekly TV, on Dish TV, Direct TV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants, and the Say Hey Kid. When you reach out to them, just tell them Big C sent you. Our goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers, put their property listings on TV just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, sports teams do it, and you can watch TV and real estate work for you. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. If you're looking for opportunities in real estate, go to bigcsports.pacwm.com. That's bigcsports.pacwm.com, and you can hear about opportunities going on there. Really appreciate all the good things happening. We're going to be opening some offices in the state of Utah coming up in September. Even though COVID is still out there, there's still opportunities growing in real estate. Big C, I want to get into, actually, I just want to congratulate Joe Biden last night for accepting the Democratic nominee for presidency of the United States. I hope that people get out and vote. I thought he hit a home run last night with his speech. I know a lot of people are paying attention to, are they going to have sports? Are they not going to have sports? Are they going to have canceled games or not? But it's good to see when people come together. And I just want to say to the people that vote in this country, Big C, it was refreshing to see diversity when people are supporting you from Democrats and Republicans. But to see diversity in the Oval Office, that's a good to see, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, diversity is what America is built on, Charlton. So, he took the first step last night by getting the nomination.
Yeah.
The thing is now is that there has to be follow-up.
Yeah.
It just cannot be lip service, regardless of which party that you're in. As Americans, you have to understand, are you wanting to replace it with what you've had for the last 4 years? Or do you feel that America needs to have a new vision and take a different direction?
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to. Joe Biden, he would be a president of all people.
Yeah.
Even those people who did not vote for him. That's something that we have not had in this current administration.
Yeah, we have not had that. So I'm asking American, all over this great land, the land of the free and the home of the brave, register to vote. Text the word VOTE to 26797. That's 2797. And when you do it, tell them Big C and the NFL sent you. Just go out and vote. Register your friends and family and do your thing. Big C, I want to tell you what I highly encourage, and again, it's your opinion. Please do not put your photo on a stamp when you send in your ballot, because someone might lick it and it's a lollipop, Big C. That makes sense.
Well, I'm thinking more of a Hershey bar, Charlton, that they're going to look at it.
It's all fair love and war. And speaking of licking things, the Lakers, I had some friends from Hawaii, and whenever they want to have a fist fight, they say, hey, you get licked, bro. I think you might get licking, bro. I think my friends down in L.A. for the Lakers, they gave Portland a pretty good licking last night. They licked them so hard, they even said Damian Lillard dislocated his finger, Big C. Your thoughts?
Yeah, but I mean, when you look at that game in true perspective, Charlton, was it a dominating game, or was it a game that the Lakers desperately have to win? You're the number one seed in the West, and you're, losing your opening round game with team, Charlton, that had to play in to get into that carousel.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from the Lakers' perspective, Charlton, they desperately needed to win more than Portland did. Portland, in essence, would have taken home court advantage away from the Lakers. Now it's even, Charlton, but can the Lakers keep that momentum? When you look at the game that LeBron James had his lowest, production numbers ever in a playoff game,
yeah.
Even though the Lakers won, that's something that's going to have to be concerning.
Yeah.
Can the rest of the players hold up that end of the bargain night in and night out?
Yeah, I think they hit 14 threes last night. They had hit only 5 threes in the first game. I think the Lakers will find their groove. Sometimes you take time off, you get a little bit lazy. If you look at Giannis for the Milwaukee Bucks, they came out and put a little beat down on Orlando. Also, Big C. So much for the bubble, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. When you take the 2 number 1 seeds in the bubble, Charlton,
yeah.
and they lose their opening game, the pressure is on them. The other guys are playing with house money because they weren't supposed to be there. When
yeah.
you look at Orlando and you look at Portland, they weren't supposed to be in the tournament. They made it in, Charlton.
Yeah.
So they're putting the ultimate pressure on those teams. Now, you got to also understand the amount of energy that the Lakers as well as the Bucks had to expend last night to get those victories, Charlton.
Yeah.
We're talking about older legs on those teams. Are they going to be consistently able to come back? You look at the Milwaukee Bucks. They got 3 guys equal 21 feet in height. The Lopez twins and Giannis.
Yeah.
And yet in game 1, Orlando dominated them, Charlton. They took that away from them. They came back in game 2. But the same thing with the Lakers. Yes, you had a good night in beating up on Portland. But, when you lose Dame Lillard and he does score 20 points in a game, Charlton, that has to worry you because that's the difference in the ball game where he had 37 in game 1, 18 in game 2. He comes back and be his normal. There's going to be a lot of pressure on the Lakers.
Yeah, I think all the NBA players, they play with pressure, just making the team is pressure. And a lot of guys, they thrive no matter what it is. It's good seeing. I didn't think I would like NBA basketball as much as I'm enjoying it. I know there's no crowd, but there is, to see guys competing at a high level, to me, that's something that I enjoy. I don't really get a chance to watch it live, but I do DVR a lot of things. and then I'll come back and watch it later. So I'm looking forward to some good basketball, and I know there's always a chance for the underdog, and that makes guys in Las Vegas happy when the underdog gets the win. We'll see what happens with that. I want to ask you a question. I believe in giving people second chances because I know, God knows, I've needed my second chances in life, Big C. And the thing that you and I do when we're on there, we cannot redact our shows. We don't take a time to go back and edit anything that we say or missay. That's why we don't use profanity, and we try to be as accurate as possible. And if we make a mistake, say, hey, well, I made a mistake. Let me correct what I said. But I want to ask you, Phil, on this gentleman by the name of Thom Brennaman. It's an incident that he had in Cincinnati, and he tried to spin it on the air that it was not a comment of character, and he has strong Christian beliefs. Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, I am so tired of white people coming on after they've been caught on a mic or camera making statements, racial and homophobic statements. You think about how hard people fight to get rid of injustice in America. And when you get caught, you're going to come back and say, that is not my faith, that is not my character. I have strong Christian beliefs.
Yeah.
But you said that word too easily. It flowed off your tongue like a nice glass of scotch rolling down your throat, Charlton.
Yeah.
He was at ease when he made the statement. And even after he made the statement, he didn't say, whoops, I made a mistake.
Right.
He made a mistake after it was brought to his attention that it was caught on mic, Charlton.
Yeah.
Every white guy who does this is always coming back being apologetic for his real self. Now, if he didn't know anything about the FAG word prior to using it, he would have never used it, Charlton. But this, he thought as soon as that mic was gone, he had been holding this in.
Yeah.
And he was waiting to let it out. He was waiting to let it flow. So he has had a past many times in meetings with not having a mic on. You think about all of those guys that were working with him, that they didn't immediately come out and get him off the air. Because this is what's said in the meetings on a regular basis, Charlton. I dealt in those meetings when I first got into broadcast.
Yeah.
Those type of epithets were used, and I had to straighten it out because I'm the black guy in the room now.
Yeah.
So you can't be telling the Negro jokes now. That has to go away. And I don't want to hear any other ethnicity anyway.
Yeah.
About how hard and the disparity that the LGBT community has in America and what they have to fight through. You don't have to deal in somebody's life if you don't choose to be that way. We don't ask all white people to be Negroes. We don't ask all white people to be gay. But you cannot take your will and your thoughts and force it on another culture of people thinking that that's acceptable and okay in America.
Yeah.
These people, if they're not bothered, they're not forcing their life, they don't create the racism. The racism is created against Negroes, LGBT community, and every other culture that's allegedly white in America.
Yeah.
So why should people be willing to sit there and say they accept his apology? This is a one-time deal. No, this is time he got caught on the camera.
Yeah.
And on the mic. That's what it is, Charlton.
I want to ask you, if you contrast that, juxtapose that to Deshaun Jackson had said something, and I guess a lot of people in the Jewish faith got upset, and I guess the Philadelphia Eagles had them go to, the Holocaust Museum to a better understanding of it. And let me ask you, we don't know the answer to everything. People of all colors, anybody can say something stupid. I say stupid things too. I just apologize for it. And what is the solution? Because I don't think it's about white people. I think it's about people. There's so many people that have said good and bad things, and sometimes people say, let's do education. Do you think that's more important than pulling somebody off the air and having them lose their job? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, how many times have you heard these statements come from on air? You have not. You've heard them come from white people on the air, and people are finding excuses for them to do this. It's just like saying it's locker room talk. It's always that guys talking about the denigrating wording, just like with Donald Trump. It's locker room talk. I've been in many locker rooms in my lifetime. It's not locker room talk, Charlton, but you're always trying to find an excuse for those who are doing it. And every time they do it, generally the person looks like the palm of your hand. You talk about John Jackson, the Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver.
Yeah.
The anti-Semitic statements that he made. Well, think about what Riley Cooper said when Chip Kelly was the coach. Chip Kelly was the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
When he would jump over the fit and beat up all those Negroes. Saying that on tape and see happen to him. It's all a matter of which mouth it comes out of. If the mouth is white that it comes out of, Charlton, the judgment comes from the white people. That's what it comes from.
Yeah.
They're the ones being the judges. I guarantee you that producer and director on that broadcast were not black. They were not Negro. They
Yeah.
were white. And after they thought about it, they said, well, maybe we're going to have to make a decision here.
Yeah.
The guy who writes this check at Fox is not black either. And I'm guaranteeing you he's not gay. But, you know, they're sitting there and say, okay, we got to do some damage control.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do. But how long are you going to keep giving these guys a pass? I mean, how many broadcasters have we heard this year use either their homophobic or racist statements?
Yeah.
They say it when the mic is off. Why don't they just say it openly when the mic is on during the broadcast? Then we would have a better understanding. But don't cover for a guy who is trying to hide once the mic is off.
Well, let me ask you, and I want to judge people by the content of their character, not their skin. And maybe you're not the right guy to ask this question, but for a lot of Caucasian brethren that are in the broadcast media, when they heard POTUS say grappling by the P-U-S blah 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 blah, and then people voted for him anyway, maybe they got emboldened and thinking they can be what they're like in private in the air. It didn't hurt Trump, so do you think that maybe that made people think that they could do the same thing, ride the same bus, and not have any chastisement? Big C, your thoughts?
Charlton, they were doing this long before Donald Trump ever became elected. You can't use Donald Trump as an excuse. That's a whole different modus operandi. We're talking about the political arena and a lot of different things that have been said in this arena even before Donald Trump, became president. You always want to quote George Wallace, so is it okay for the guys to say that on air as a broadcaster, sports broadcaster, as a news broadcaster? No, there's things that broadcasters cannot say. You cannot loop them in with a politician, Charlton. But what guy is saying, and you show me the black guys that are broadcasters that have made these statements. That's all I'm asking. If you want a fair playing surface, show me the black guys who have made these racial statements as broadcasters. I'm okay. I will denigrate them also.
Yeah, I just wonder if they got a little more emboldened by POTUS.
But no, yeah. I'm asking you the question. Tell me what black broadcasters that you know of that have made these racial and homophobic statements on air. That's what I'm asking.
Big C,
it's not about empowering somebody.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you to make it fair.
Well,
Show me those guys.
I am going to be fair. I know a lot of people that are in the entertainment industry and make music with all the homophobic and sexist, misogyny.
We're talking about sports broadcasters. And these are the ones. The guy in Sacramento works with the Kings. I think Napier lost his job earlier. He's not a rapper. We're not talking about rap. We're not talking about politics. We're talking about sports and television broadcasters.
Yeah.
Those are the people we're talking about. The people who are in your face every day. A rapper, you choose whether you want to play his music or not. Okay? When you're watching a sporting event, you're not asking for that guy's personal feelings, what he does when he's not at work.
Yeah. I think it's all in the same kind of gumbo, in my opinion, but everybody has their reaction to it. But everybody has.
So you're saying that a rapper, that they will freely bring them on television and let them call a baseball game and let them use the epithets that they use?
No, I'm saying Jay-Z has had some of the worst horrific words in his music.
That's not what I'm saying.
No.
Is Jay-Z coming out doing sporting events? That's what I'm asking.
But he got accepted
Show
by
me the rapper that's coming out doing sporting events. Then we can put them all on the same page.
Okay, the NFL brought in Jay-Z, who has all the N-words, the MF, the B word, anything you can think of. The NFL brought him in. They didn't throw him under the bus.
Maybe I missed it. Which game did Jay-Z broadcast?
That's not the point.
Maybe I missed that one.
Well,
yes, it is.
No, it's
That's
not.
What we're talking about. We're talking about broadcasting. You're going to tell me that the NFL owners started from Jerry Jones on down, don't use racial epithets and swear words. Robert Kraft got caught hanging out with prostitutes. So you know what's going on there. We're talking about as broadcasters, the guys who deliver the message. You can't loop a rapper in with a broadcaster because he's not hired by a network. He's on air to talk to millions of people.
Well, that's a matter of opinion, but I think if you invite a guy into your league and he makes a living saying the things that people get fired or suspended for, it's kind of double entendre, Big C. It's kind of like having straddling both sides of the fence, but that's just my opinion.
No, it's not. You Charlton, these all use profanity. These head coaches use profanity.
Yep.
These general managers use profanity. So what you're saying is that they're all like Jay-Z or Jay-Z all like them. So they're on an even playing field. What I am talking about is a broadcast. That's like saying that a doctor is an auto mechanic. And if the doctor's an auto mechanic cuss, then they're the same. No, it's not. They're two different industries. The guy who makes his money on rap music using profanity, that's what he paid to do. That's where he makes his millions. When you're looking at Tom Brennan and any other broadcaster who's been fired for using profanity or homophobic or racial slurs, Charlton, on a broadcast, he's hired to do a sporting event. There's no similarity in it. That's just like saying the preacher is the broadcaster.
Well, I think there is a lot of similarity, but that's just my opinion. When people use certain profanity and they work in the same industry, one gets fired, the other gets a pat on the back. But that's just an opinion, and everybody has their own.
Basically, you're going to find every player on the field other than Phillip Rivers using profanity during a football game. During a professional college and high school game. Once you use profanity, you're no longer allowed to be on the field because it's part of the sport. Whether it's the NBA, whether it's baseball, whether it's hockey, you don't hear the mics on the NBA games that you watch. You don't hear those floor mics, do you? Because there's no fans to drown out the profanity that the players are using. And everything is on a delay. The reason why, Charlton, because the profanity is still there, it's just not drowned out by the fans. The baseball games, they can mic these players up. You think they want to take that risk on live television? No.
Well, my thinking is, we're such in a knee-jerk reaction world. Give people the chance to apologize and atone for it. That's my opinion. If he was out saying cast the first stone.
Every black person that's been hung in America, you saying that was a knee-jerk.
Now, how do you tie lynching into broadcasting?
Hung them from a tree. They denigrated their lives, destroyed their family's future. That was a knee-jerk reaction. We should just forgive them all. Every racial act in America should be forgiven. So everybody who goes out and harms someone emotionally, that should be forgiven. So tell that to everybody. If you've done something wrong to somebody, you're going to get forgiven.
Big C.
Let's forgive Officer Sharman in Minneapolis for killing George Floyd on TV.
Big C, let me ask you an honest question. Have you ever done anything wrong in life?
I've done wrong in life, Charlton, like everybody else.
Okay. Case in point. Everybody deserves to say, I'm sorry, be forgiven. If not, if we're like the person standing in the glass house shouting at everybody, but you point one finger at somebody, usually 3 point back at you. That's just my opinion. I would say let the man apologize, let him atone. And if we do that, then we're all in trouble. That's my opinion. I want to go to a subject I want to ask about. NCAA football. There's a first-year coach, I believe it's Carolina football, assistant coach Mike Bobo, and he said that he was offended by allegations that anyone on his former Colorado State staff team says that they were abused or treated with racial insensitivity. And something happened on June 11th, 2020. He was trying, I guess a guy was walking around trying to sell roofing, like people knock on your door. They say, hey, we're selling roofing and new roofing. Would you like something for your house? Instead, he was branded, I guess, by an Antifa terrorist and forced to the ground at gunpoint with a knee on his neck. His name is Barry Wesley. He's a 20-year-old, 6'6", 300-pound African-American man at Colorado State offensive tackle. And when he brought this to the attention of people, some people said, well, no, that never happened. That make any sense? Your thoughts?
Charlton, this is what I'm talking about. I guess the guy who pulled the gun on him and put him down on the street should be given forgiveness. Here's a young college athlete trying to earn money doing a summer job, and as many college athletes have done, and he goes to work for a roofing company. But because he's a black man walking down the street, he is branded as a violent, threatening person. Think about how many times black people have been brandished as that. You say you talk to them all the time, leaving the home on how to behave and what to watch out for. Why should you have to do that, Charlton, if we don't live in a racist society? If everything is equal based on the content of his character and not the color of his skin, you shouldn't have to never say a word to him leaving the house. You think about this young man in Colorado State. You're out there trying to earn an honest living, doing a legal job, and you're knocking on doors. You got a lanyard around that. You got a clipboard in your hand, and somebody follows you down the street. I think we saw that several months ago in Georgia where a young man, Ahmaud Arbery, out on a run, gets gunned down by white people in the street, Charlton, shot to death. And they tracked him down like a wild animal. The same thing could have happened to this young student at Colorado State. And you're going to have Mike Bobo say he didn't realize and he feels offended that people felt it was a racial and unjust society in Colorado State while he was coaching. It didn't change because he got fired, Charlton. It went on then.
Yeah, I know it goes on, but at the same time, there's a lot of times, just like when I heard Joe Biden talk last night, and he talked about atonement, and he talked about being willing to stakes and to learn things. He talked about his son going off and fighting for this country and coming down with a horrible disease and ultimately losing his life. He talked about the lost first wife and a child in a car accident. And he talked about, like, how do you still get up? And in life, things happen to people. It could be racial. It could be about gender. It could be about so many different things. But at the same time, Big C, we still, in my opinion, we got to forgive people. If not, the person with all that hate and venom inside, they're the ones who get sick, not the people that they're, sometimes people don't even know you're mad at them. The football player, I feel bad about what happened. I've had things like that happen to me similarly, but I don't harbor it to the end of my life. I want to forgive people and go forward, because not I'd be the one getting ill over it.
It's hard to say that you've had that similar happen to you, that you're out on a job, you talk about you do it all the time now, that all of a sudden somebody comes up to you at gunpoint and tells you to get down in the street because you're in a white neighborhood.
No, let me explain it. Let me explain something. Let me explain something to you.
The same experience.
Let me
talk about forgiving people. Think about the 170,000 Americans that have lost their lives because Donald Trump doesn't give a damn about COVID-19. You think everybody standing in lines, I forgive you, and we're still going to lose probably another 50,000 Americans, Charlton, prior to the November 3rd election. You think all those families that are hurt and destroyed are going to tell Donald Trump, we forgive you because you had our best interest in mind?
Well, I was telling you the story about I've had things happen to me. There was a roommate that I had in college. He was a black guy. And he said he was going to kill me in my sleep. And when I woke up, he told me that. He came to me crying. His name is Sidney. And I'm glad you didn't do it. And he said that the angels wouldn't let me do it. Now, people might think that's a weird story. I'm telling you what happened. He's a black guy. He wasn't white. Had nothing to do with racism. But he apologized because he said he wanted to kill me in my sleep. And I said, why would you do that? I'm glad you didn't do it. But for whatever his reason was, he apologized. We had him move out, of course. And when I saw him later in the year on campus, he asked me if it would be okay if he moved back in. And I told him, no, I don't trust you. And that was the end of the conversation. He was black just like me. I told him, I forgive you, but I don't trust you. I don't harbor that in my heart, but things have happened to everybody, Big C. That's just an opinion, and I know people go through things. I want to ask you something, because this happened to LeBron James. And, you know, when you're in media, there are people who want to use your name for whatever they can benefit from. We did a story yesterday about the football player that played at Notre Dame, Jerome Bettis, they called him the bus, and some people wanted to use his name so they could go out and reach out to more African Americans to give them contracts. And when they got to, they decided to give the contract opportunities to white contractors and didn't share it with black Americans, Big C. But there's a thing about...
It's ironic you say that. It's offended. You're saying instead of giving it to blacks, they gave it to whites and they manipulated blacks.
I'm not a bigot. And I think sometimes black men claim that, oh, it's racism, and then want to stab me with a knife and say, hey, that's not racism, though. So I think good is good and bad is bad. Maybe you've never had anyone do anything bad to you, but the only time...
I've had all...
Okay, well,
But I've had majority of white. You know, you talk about getting out of trouble. White people are the ones that got me in trouble.
Well,
white people have had to get me out of trouble because I've had to hire.
Well, so it must be good and bad.
I've had black people rip me off. I've had white people rip me off.
So it must be good and bad.
Black people coming up trying to kill me or point guns at me.
Well, you're like Dr. King. There's good and bad. Judge people by the kind of character, not the color of their skin. You can't be justified if you only go through life looking at the bad things that some people do. That doesn't make any sense. We're gonna take what's called the Big C.
Rapper, the only one bad with a mic then.
Well, if you open your eyes, rappers come in all colors. Okay, it's not about black and white. It's really sad if you go through life thinking everything that is black and everything that is white. But that's my opinion. We'll take the Big C timeout. We'll come right back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, one podcast network in the universe. iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on so many applications, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You know, you and I can have agreements, and we can agree and disagree. But one thing, if God were to come down and say, let me judge every person, there's no way in the world that any person can say that 100% of the time and somebody is good or bad because of their skin color. That would be rebuked, Big C. So that's why I want to tell other people, treat people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And if you don't do that, you're just like the enemy. That's my opinion. LeBron James, he rebuked an advertiser over the misuse of what he tried to say in one of his, people use athletes to get out their message. And so he had to rebuke an advertiser for misquoting him. He didn't say it was about race, but he just did the rebuke, Big C. That makes sense to you? Your thoughts?
Well, athletes all the time are victimized and manipulated on the things that they say and their likeness without, as they deal with copyright infringements. But they're willing to go out there before they get caught, Charlton. Once they get caught, then at that point it has to be, redacted.
They got to redact it. And that's what I mean. In life, if I was told one time, I remember playing college football, and I was making excuses about something. And the coach looked at me and he said, you know what? Everybody makes excuses. But while you're pointing one finger at somebody, there's 3 pointing back at you. And I learned something about that man because he was honest with me. And I think LeBron James did the right thing. He didn't make it about racism. It's just fix what you did wrong. I do want to ask this question. There's an Australian, for you people in the land down under, Australian rugby player, Elijah Taylor, was suspended for the season. Now, people always talk about men doing things, and sometimes men want to get the extra cookie. But suspended for the season for trying to sneak a woman into the bubble in Australia. But that meant that woman was complicit. At least that's my opinion, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Tommy, we saw that a week or so ago up in Seattle. Where a rookie tried to stick his woman in training camp.
Yeah.
Cost him his job, probably $500,000 a year cost him, Charlton.
Yeah.
Same thing down in Australia. They took it seriously. You're suspended for the rest of the year. You're not going to be able to play rugby. And so when you think about putting everybody else in peril, that they play in a bubble down in Australia, just like in Orlando with the basketball teams down there, they're doing the same thing with rugby.
Yeah.
But when you think about Australia, who, the last time that they had a breakout, I think they had 14 cases, and they shut down the whole country, Charlton. This is the reason why they're not suffering the deaths like they do here in America. The government in Australia takes it serious, Charlton, in every capacity. Our president takes it as a joke. And he takes it as a Democratic hoax. With 100,000 Americans dead, he's thinking that's okay.
Yeah, I think he even had I think his friend Bannon got out of jail. He got out of jail fast. I think they posted $5 million for him. So he took his mask off as soon as he came out of the courthouse and tried to infect other people, but they had their mask on. Here's a guy that got out of a jailhouse where they say COVID's pretty bad, and he takes his mask off and tries to get it to some of the reporters that were asking him questions. Big C Sports, we want to be sexy. We want to be clever. We want to be engaging. We want to be funny. We want to be thoughtful. We want to be provocative. We want to be real sports talk. If it feels good to you and you want some more, just Google it. And as people are Googling things, I got to take this stance. We talked about it some yesterday, but you talked about people getting in trouble for trying to sneak a woman into a tent. What is it about men that can't go 2 or 3 days without a woman, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, it's been a little longer. You got to look at the woman also.
Yeah.
She could go without a man. She was willing to run across a facility, Charlton.
Yeah.
It was like a golf course. There was the practice to the training facility where these players are staying. She was willing to run across there at night and try to evade security. So evidently she was wanted a little more than what was.
Hey, and they say she's got to have it. Spike Lee had a movie, She's Got to Have It, back in the day. And they say a lioness mates at least 100 times a day. A man mates maybe 2 times. so maybe something in science. College football, to understand how unintelligent some parents are. And again, people have opinions. That's what I love about talking to people who don't see eye to eye with me. I get to learn something, and maybe we both can. But there's some parents in the Big Ten Conference, football player, 25 parents. They pick it up at the Big Ten Commissioner's office. They picket it. And they were carrying signs protesting the main office. Then the office remains closed, and their employees, and they're all mad because they are listening to science, and they won't allow their kids to play football. But I thought parents sent their kids to school to get an education, Big C, not to play football.
Well, Charlton, when I heard that story, I went back to the dumb document.
Yeah.
The Big Ten offices are closed.
Yeah.
All the employees are working remotely from home or other
exactly.
outlets.
Yep.
And yet these parents are staying outside the building. Some 25, 30 parents holding
Yeah.
ticket signs. Who the hell were they kidding?
Oh, man.
The lock on the door. So that lets me understand why people use the dumb jock. When you're coming from a parent who is not clairvoyant enough to see the close signs on the door,
and they want to fight.
the doors are locked and nobody's inside.
Yeah.
That lets me understand that why that student athlete wants to play ball.
Yeah.
He's no smarter than his parents.
So maybe they were listening to a song, "Who's Got It Better Than Us? Nobody," and they wanted to beat up Jim Harbaugh and the guys who make decisions for Jim Harbaugh and Coach Day not to play football. The parents want to show up and beat up. They want to beat up the commissioner or the president of the Big Ten. Doesn't make any sense. Sometimes
this reminds me of parents going to a Pointer game.
Yeah, and want to
Coach
fight.
Pop Warner years ago. Parents coming down out the stand. Why isn't my son playing? Because he ain't no damn good, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, we get him in when we get a lead or we've been blown out. But right now, tell me who I should replace your son with. You know, is that good?
I've heard players say, we only lost because the coach sucks. And the guy hating coach to get his, but it's all fair level war. I want to just throw in Serena Williams, obviously, one of the best tennis players in the history of the universe. Stu Gatz, you keep saying universe. You know you got it from Big C Sports. You can at least pay homage to it like I just did. Paid homage to you. It's all fair level war. Tennis star Serena Williams, she opts to rent a rental house for the U.S. Open due to COVID-19, and she says she has some lung issues, and I guess they all in a bubble in a hotel where they're all sharing different, at least the same hallways, and she opts to rent a house, which takes her out of the bubble. But that compromise when they want to take you out of the bubble to come back into the bubble with other people, Big C?
Well, Charlton, you have to go through COVID-19 testing. I mean, this is not common for tennis players to go in and rent their own personal home, Charlton, for the U.S. Open, especially when you think that you're going to be advancing in the tournament. This is something that she's done in the past, but, I mean, it's irrelevant as far as what you do as far as play on the court. You have to get to the finals. Yeah, you got to get to the finals to get in, but everybody is figuring out their own protocol. It would be like the NBA players saying, I'm going to rent a hotel because I don't want to be around these other guys, and then going in and out of that situation. But, again, they got to figure out how to do that. Ironically, in the same city, in New York City, you have the Subway Series, which has been canceled. And the New York Yankees and the New York Mets, they're on pause. And they're not on pause because someone sold them some bad hot dogs in New York City. They're on pause because the Morris test positive for COVID-19. And now it's like baseball. Every week, teams are being on pause. Players are being put into quarantine. But they're just going forward anyways. Like the forest fire in California, people are leaving. They're leaving. They're not going into the fire. Big C, your thoughts? This kind of reminds me of an old group I used to listen to when I was younger, the Temptations.
Yeah.
When they had a song that this is an everyday thing in the ghetto. This is an everyday thing, MLB,
yeah.
COVID-19.
Yeah, it really is. And I think people are just, in my opinion, they're just treating it like mononucleosis. There's a swimmer, I think it's Michael Phelps, he got mononucleosis. How does a world champion swimmer get mononucleosis when you're around other world champion women athletes?
Drinking that bad water when you're in the pool.
Hey, with Sam Darnold, I beg your pardon, Sam Darnold got mononucleosis, and that was in New York City, Big C, your thoughts?
We know that it's a city of filth. It's not the greatest city in America, so
yeah.
They have problems. But, this is a baseball problem as they talk about COVID-19. When you look at the number of games that have been canceled or postponed since the start of this shortened season in MLB, Charlton, Rob Manfred is not going to get his hands around this. And once you play all these, Charlton, what are you going to do when players start testing positive in a playoff series? Yeah,
they just keep going to the bank, Big C. Manfred's not out there on the field. He said they would lose $4 billion if they didn't have the rest of baseball season. That's why they're doing that. I want to go to this. I know you like to swing golf clubs. You're actually a pretty decent golfer. Last time I saw you shoot on the golf course, Big C. Scotty Scheffler shoots at 59 at TCP Austin in the second round. I think he's only the 11th player to do that and one of the youngest to ever shoot at that rate. 59 is pretty good, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Dolphin, he's only the fourth player under the age of 22 to shoot a score like that. And the thing about it, he went through that round bogey-free. He had 12 birdies, and the rest were bars, Dolphin. He did not shoot a bogey in that round. But to even more be impressive than that, you think about Dustin Johnson on the PGA Tour.
Yeah.
He shot a 60 today, Charlton.
Yeah.
And that's smoking it when you're on the PGA Tour.
Yeah. He's doing more. He's one of the guys that are in the most decent shape I would think of some of the athletes out there. But it's like guys are just getting better on the golf courses. I used to talk about Tiger proof on the course when Tiger started winning all the tournaments, and now there's a lot of guys that are shooting very low rounds. I don't know if you could juice a golf ball. Something's going on when you're hitting 60.
No, the golf balls are juiced. It's the technology of the clubs that are created. Now, you think about this. There's new clubs come out seeing every 6 to 12 months, Charlton.
Yeah.
And these clubs add links to the balls that you're driving. And when you think about the guys on the PGA Tour,
Yeah.
they have custom clubs.
Yep.
And if you damage a club, you have the club makers right there on the course, Charlton, doing
Yeah.
a PGA tournament that will fit you and make you in a matter of moments.
Yeah, well, maybe that's my problem. That's why I'm always shooting around 80. Maybe I got to shoot 59, get my own clubs made for me. It's all fair and level. I want to get into, speaking of guys that are getting everything custom made, when it comes to NFL, who do you think would be the next dynasty in the NFL? Think about it. Is it the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes? Would it be the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson? How about the New England Patriots with Cam Newton? I think if Cam Newton is as healthy as their Sandy looks in practice, I think they're still going to be the favorite to win the AFC East. Would you look at the Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz, who's made it through a season healthy, not since college? Or would it be the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo, and their defense was good this year? I think it's going to be, last year, they'll still be good again this year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at those guys, I mean, everybody was fascinated with Lamar Jackson last year, the Baltimore Ravens. But you think about the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and what he's done in 2 years in the NFL as a starter.
Yeah.
He was a coin flip away from going to back-to-back Super Bowls. He was an offsides away from going to back-to-back Super Bowls. So when you think of what he's done in leadership with the Kansas City Chiefs, all those young backs you name are great. I like Cam Newton's situation in New England because the way that the organization is run.
Yeah.
But hands down, I think the next 4 or 5 years, the Kansas City Chiefs, the players that they have locked up under contract, are the ace of spades in the NFL.
Yeah, things have changed, and I wonder, it all depends. I mean, COVID, NFL, most likely, they're going to either play or have a pause. I do believe that college football will pause eventually, but the NFL is still being, and they'll try to go through things until someone, drops out, passes out on the sidelines. But that's just my thoughts on it. I want to bring up something that I think it happened just today. The NCAA, because we talk about who's going to be the dynasty in the NFL, it's about drafting who they get for the next year's draft. NCAA, it gave a vote to give an extra year of eligibility to D1 athletes that played in the fall. So this is a prelude to the pause of fall sports. I know we only have the Power 5, the Pac-12 opted out, the Big Ten opted out, even though parents threatened to beat up the president of the Big Ten for trying to keep the kids safe. They want to beat them up. That doesn't make sense. You still have the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. You ever know someone want to beat somebody up for trying to keep you safe, Big C? But if they are getting this ready for the pause, they're telling players, science is more overwhelming than these hit boosters. And if you do pause it, then we'll give you an extra year of eligibility, Big C, and we won't beat you up, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, the initial move was made on that with the cancel of March Madness, Charlton.
Yeah.
That they granted senior athletes and athletes who would have ended their eligibility
Yep.
an extra year. I know we talked about it earlier in the week. They looking to do that with fall sports also, Charlton. So they voted on it today, and that made that come to fruition.
Yeah, and they made it cut to fruition. Imagine somebody wants to get into a fist fight because you want to keep people safe. That's just crazy. And it's talking about the colleges. I wonder, in your opinion, how it will affect things, because a lot of it's down there in the South. Of the Power 3 conferences left playing football, let me get your thoughts. We just talked about some NFL teams as far as dynasty. Who do you think has the best quarterback situation? You look at the ACC, you have D'Eriq King of Miami, Trevor Lawrence of Clemson, and then Ian Book out of Notre Dame. See your thoughts.
Well, I mean, you got 3 outstanding programs when you're looking at it. Trevor Lawrence has been in back-to-back national championships. Ian Book 2 years ago had Notre Dame in that situation. But overall, when you look at those three quarterbacks, I like De'Aaron King.
Yeah.
De'Aaron King is a transfer to the University of Miami, to the University of Houston. And when you look at his statistical numbers when he was at the University of Houston, Charlton,
Yeah.
he blew people away. He stopped playing after 4 good games last year because he wanted the red shirt under the new coaching staff. But what he brings to that offense down at the University of Houston, if people remember Lamar Jackson's sophomore year
Yeah.
at Louisville when he won the Heisman Trophy,
He was good.
this is Lamar Jackson's sophomore year on steroids.
Yeah. Well, don't say words for college players. That might. You don't want to start an investigation, Big C. I know sometimes you have the insight on a lot of things, too. In the SEC, A.J. Cuttle, Mississippi State, Jamie Newman out of Georgia, and a good old boy by the name of Bo Nix out of Auburn, Big C. Your thoughts?
You know, you think about Bo Nix, Charles, was a true freshman last year. I think he beat up on that Oregon team that you guys sent out there to Dallas. And run over by a freshman
They cheated us.
quarterback with this alleged Heisman Trophy candidate.
Justin Herbert.
And quarterback.
In Herbert,
You
yep.
know, you look at C.J. Costello. He's a transfer out of Stanford.
Yeah.
He's going down to Mississippi State, Charlton, and he's playing in that Mike Leach offense.
Yeah.
3 times last year at Stanford, he threw the ball over 40 times in a game while he was at Stanford. Mike Leach averages 55 passes a game.
Yeah.
You know, when he was Washington State, so
Yeah.
he's going to have to keep that arm on some ice, and you know he's going to get a chance to really get to see if he's a true pro prospect playing down there in Mississippi State. Jamie Newsom is the quarterback, Charlton, that's running under the radar down there. He's a transfer out of Wake Forest.
Yeah.
He was in the ACC last year. He was the best quarterback in that conference. Actually got his team off to an 8-0 start.
Yeah.
Now he's transferring down to Georgia, and we know the athletes that Georgia have. They always have the number 2 recruiting class in the country.
Yeah.
Jamie Newsom is going to have a chance to have the shackles taken off of him down at Georgia, Charlton, if they play. Look at him being a Heisman candidate.
He's had a bright future. That's what they're saying. I want to go to the Big 12. You know, you had Jalen Hurts coming out of the Big 12 and led Oklahoma to the playoffs. Before that, then they have, you know, Baker Mayfield. There's always someone out of the Big 12. And your friend Patrick Mahomes also comes out of the Big 12 conference. But they don't seem to do much to get to the college playoffs. But there's a guy by the name of Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma. And then Sam Ehlinger out of Texas that I think is a bit overrated. Big C, my thoughts.
You look at Ehlinger out of Texas, Charlton, and where he's been. You know, he's a quarterback that, you know, beating all the odds being down there. He's a tremendous runner as well as a deep passer. But you go up to Oklahoma, Charlton, and you talked about, you know, Lincoln Riley's offense. His last 2 quarterbacks, actually his last 3 quarterbacks have been year transfers. He had Baker Mayfield come in, win the Heisman Trophy. Kyler Murray come in, win the Heisman Trophy, Charlton. And then you had Jalen Hurts come in, finish second in the Heisman Trophy battle.
Yeah.
Spencer Rattler is the first high school quarterback that Lincoln Riley recruited that will play down at Oklahoma. And ironically, Spencer Rattler is a better quarterback than those other 3 quarterbacks that have taken teams to the college football playoff and all been on the Heisman Trophy finalist list.
Yeah, they've been on that list. And speaking of being on the list, Big C, the NBA, they had their little thing with the lottery last night, and I believe is the Minnesota Timberwolves got the number 1 pick. Golden State Warriors get the number 2. I know you were talking about some things with Giannis ending up out here in Golden State. I know that may or may not happen, but congratulations to the top 2, and we'll see if Golden State gets right back into the winner's circle. I want to go to the NHL, Big C, because our friends in old Canada, has anyone ever offered to beat up the Canadian commissioner because they're trying to keep people safe in the bubble like the parents of the Big Ten? They want to come beat up the people in charge of keeping their kids safe. That's the dumbest thing I ever heard. But NHL last night, the Dallas Stars down 3-0 to the Calgary Flames. 6 minutes into the game, Dallas came back and scored 7 unanswered goals to close out that series. Big C, your thoughts?
You know, sound like a football game, Charlton, ending 7-3. And you would have thought that, you know, the Dallas Stars being down 3-0 with 6 minutes, you know, at the beginning of the game, that they might have been demoralized, Charlton. But I guess, you know, they got a pretty good pep talk over the bench, Charlton, when they're talking with the coach. They came out and they were fire on ice. Sounded a little bit like Rick James and Tina Marie.
Fire and ice,
They
Big
just
C.
put down the lights on the Calgary Flames, Charlton. Eliminated them from the Stanley Cup playoffs, and now the Dallas Stars move on, and Canada has one less team to beat.
Yeah, I want to just add a quick question. I know we talked about the guy making the rude remarks up in Cincinnati. NHL hockey playoffs, a broadcaster apologized after a sexist remark about women But I think, again, these guys, they've heard Donald Trump say, grab women by the vagina, and then people voted for him. Whites voted for him like 52%, and 65% white men voted for Donald Trump after he made a very derogatory, sexist remark about grabbing women by the private parts, and then he said his locker room behavior, and then people voted for him. But you have a broadcaster in the NHL that said something stupid about women, and they want to put him on pause. Be your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I mean, this has become the temperature of broadcast, is that when you're caught saying a derogatory statement about anybody,
yeah,
whether it's culturally, whether it's ethnically, whether it's sexism, or whether it's lifestyle, Charlton, you should be punished, because it's like taking ethics clause, Charlton, in these contracts, and all these broadcasters have them. Don't think that they don't have, ethics clauses in their contract.
Yeah.
And then you should lose your position because of that, because you made a promise. You took an oath of honesty that you would not touch these areas, Charlton, on broadcast, on company time. And if you feel that somebody should be given a pass, then, the sky's the limit as far as what they should say or what they could say.
Yeah.
You take an oath to broadcast games, to talk about the sporting event that's occurring in front of you, regardless of the sport. You didn't take an oath and you didn't sign a contract, Charlton, to denigrate people, regardless of their culture, race, sexuality, or creed.
Now, wait a minute.
When you feel that you have the autonomy to do that, then you're going to get that laugh comes back at you that, hey, you're off the mic.
Now, wait a minute. I've known many professional coaches, interviewed many professional athletes, been around some locker rooms where they're chewing people up. You blippity blip, you blankety blank, blippity blap blap. And they go out and they get motivated to win the game, Big C. They don't lose their job. It's a double standard. Yes.
No, it's not. We talked about that earlier, Charlton, when we were talking about the Cincinnati Reds broadcast.
Yeah.
This is what coaches do. Whether it's owners, I mean, you think about all 32 owners in the NFL. You think they don't sit up and use profanity?
Of course they do. Yeah.
You think about the thousands of players in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like I said, I still apologize today, and I haven't played 40 years.
Yeah.
From stuff I said to guys on the field, teammates used to apologize.
Yeah.
My mouth was so bad.
Yeah.
And so it's never stopped them. When you're talking about athlete to athlete and the statements that you're making to each other, it's in the heat of the battle.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal. It's in the heat of the battle. Athletes still do it today, collegiate, professional, even high school athletes. Don't think that high school athletes don't do it either. Probably Pop Warner also.
Oh, yeah.
And Little League. But when you're a broadcaster and you have a microphone and you're held responsible, you're a representation of your broadcast company.
Yeah.
You think about if you're a fan and you walked in and all the tellers and you walked and hit them all on the butt, male and female.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be acceptable? Because that's what he does on?
Well,
come into work and do that? You don't have to be in the sport. If you're working in an office, Charlton, and an individual, another male walks in and pats with other females on the butt, you going to be okay and comfortable with that?
Well, didn't Bill O'Reilly get Fox? He got 30.
No, I'm asking you.
No.
I'm asking you. Are you going to be comfortable with a man walking through and smacking you on the butt? Have a good day, Charlton. You going to be okay with that?
No, but football players do it all the time. And if you look at...
We're talking different issues. We're talking different entities. When you're in the broadcast, you're not the athlete. You're not the athlete. Just like if your employer walks in and smacks you on the butt, you say, well, football players do it.
Well,
they say baseball and basketball players do it. We're talking about separate entities.
Well, I have worked for women who did slap me on the butt. I didn't feel offended.
About a guy.
But no, that's a gender thing. You asked me if the superior ever did that. Yeah, it's happened to me. I didn't go down to the courthouse and sue the woman. But everybody has their own thoughts, even second chances.
That's what I said. I said, if a guy walked in that you're working for, slap you and every woman in the office on the butt, you're going to be comfortable with that.
Well, I've had a woman do it. I told you I didn't sue her.
I'm asking you about a guy.
Well,
let's not change the gender. If a guy walks in and smacks you on the butt and say, have a good day today at work, Charlton, you're going to be okay with that.
I've seen football players do it all the time. You can see it on TV. They don't go...
You keep deflecting.
Well, you asked me a question. You may not like the answer, but I answered the question. I've told you.
You answer the question that's asked.
No,
Just like when the reporter asked you, do you feel bad for all the lies that you told the American public over the last 3.5 years? He's like, who?
Well,
all I'm asking is a question. It's yes or no.
Well, as I told you, I worked for a woman who did it. And I didn't sue her, and I see guys do it to each other all the time.
You'd be okay with the guy smacking you on the butt.
It's happened on the ball field, Big C. I didn't sue the coach when it happened.
In the office with your suit on, you just.
Well, I don't think.
Smacking you on the butt. I ain't mad at you.
No, I think if you're asking that question no different than the broadcaster that got punished for it, I think people can do what they want to do, but if we're going to sue people for everything, then everybody's going to be in court. There's a guy with.
But don't you say that's what you do? Sue people?
Yeah, you sue people if you feel
you're an advocate of suing people. Now you said you can't sue people.
I'm saying you sue people for things that are egregious, and if every athlete would sue a guy that slapped them on the butt, watch the NBA Finals tonight. How many lawsuits will we see?
We're not talking about athletics. See, you changed the subject. When I said you're wearing a suit and the guy walks in, your employer smacks you on the butt, and all the women in the workplace and say, "Have a good day." Are you okay with that?
So let me ask you the question: If a woman does it, if a woman smacks you on the butt, are you okay with it, Big C? Your thoughts?
Yes, but see, you can't be rhetorical. You have to answer the question to answer a question.
I did answer the question. I told you a superior slapped me on the butt. I didn't sue her, and I see athletes do it all the time.
You if a male
well, I think I could give you my answer.
And proceeded to slap all the women in office on the butt. So you guys have a good day. Are you okay with that?
Well, I think
the script said it was a woman, and I'm instinctively saying a man.
Well, I've already told you my answer. Guys do it to each other all the time. But I want to, before we close out, everybody has their own opinion. But if you get offended how somebody breathes the wrong way, you'll be offended every day. It doesn't make sense. NFL football, Jacksonville Jaguar, defensive lineman Josh Morrow, he's suspended for slapping his friends on the butt, Big C. Actually, he's suspended 5 games for illegal substance abuse, okay? I don't know if it was a steroid or what it was. Do you get suspended for that? Yes. Slapping someone on the butt? I mean, it depends on the situation, Big C. Your thoughts?
It doesn't depend on the situation, but we go back to that ethics clause and performance clause under NFL written rules. These are things that you can and cannot put in your body. And if you choose to put these things in the body, and when they take that urine and test from you, Charlton, and they show up, you're going to get suspended.
If the NFL really wants to crack down on steroids, we saw the movie with Dr. Marlowe concussion. They shut the whole season down. I know a lot of guys use the needle. They just have ways to cover it up with different creams. Before we close out, though, I know the 49ers up here in Northern California in Santa Clara, they have moved practice up an hour or two because they're trying to get away from the poor air quality in the Bay Area. So anyone in the Bay Area, please understand, the California fires, they are so large that combined, they would engulf the entire state of Rhode Island, and the entire state of Rhode Island covers 1,212 miles. That's how bad it is in California. Even pro football teams are trying to heed the warning. I bet people will heed the warning when it comes to that. Everyone, please register to vote. Just text the word vote to 26797 and register. Text all your friends. Tell them Big C NFL said vote now. We got to make sure that we get the vote out, but also keep people safe. That's so important. Big C, I know everybody has going on in this country. I appreciate what the Democrats did with the Democratic convention. We'll cover also the Republican convention when Donald Trump does this thing next week. I wonder how many lies he will tell, but people can do their own fact check or they can Google whatever it is. Please, everyone, please check on your parents, especially in California. Heat stroke is the whole thing, especially when the air quality is considered dangerous in California. So don't take that lightly. Check on people that you love. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm going to make my athletic move tomorrow, just after my absentee ballot showed up in the mail. So I'm going to make a couple of moves and dips, maneuvering downstairs in the morning, sit down at the breakfast table and fill it out, and pull on out to the mailbox and drop it off. But once again, I want to thank our frontline healthcare workers, our nurses, doctors, first responders. Very proud of what you people do every day. Very admirable work. Stay safe, stay strong.
Stay safe, stay strong, and please heed the warnings in California. We got to keep California from burning. You can heed the warnings, too, every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network on the number in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. And I always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for racism or domestic violence. If you know any man, woman, or child going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man, woman, or child should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.